Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think the consensus in this House is that we amend our Constitution to provide that district chief executives should be elected into office. There is consensus on that. Mr. Speaker, from the report of your committee, it also appears that there is an agreement that further steps will be taken so that the election to district assembly chief executive positions will or can be on the basis of partisanship, with political parties sponsoring candidates. It doesn't appear to me that there is any dispute regarding the consensus on these two positions. So, Speaker, the only issue is that once we agree on this, our actions must be seen to be geared towards achieving these two objectives. The argument that I hear on the floor of the House from the minority is that it doesn't appear that, strictly speaking, in order to deal with the two positions that we have taken, amending 243 first is the best approach. Mr. Speaker, I am going to diverge a little to say that we could actually amend either of them first. But to show that we are committed to the two approaches, which is DCs should be elected and that they should be elected on partisan basis, there is something that we ought to have done in this amendment. Because, Mr. Speaker, if you look at Article 55(2), it states, and with your permission, let me just quote for emphasis because you already know. It says that, subject to the provision of this article, a political party is free to participate in shaping the political will of the people, to disseminate information on political ideas, social and economic programs of a national character, and sponsor candidates for elections to any public office other than to district assemblies or lower local government units. But, Mr. Speaker, this is not the only prohibition to political parties participating in district assembly elections or lower political unit elections. Article 248 almost repeats 55(3), and it says, Mr. Speaker, that a candidate seeking election to a district assembly or any lower local government unit shall present himself to the electorate as an individual and shall not use any symbol associated with any political party. And 2 says a political party shall not endorse, sponsor, offer a platform to, or in any way campaign for or against a candidate seeking election to a district assembly or any lower local government unit. So 55(3) has been repeated in Article 248. Mr. Speaker, if indeed we are committed to this dual position, that let's have DCEs elected, but let's also have them elected on partisan basis, then we should have started by amending 248 at this stage. Yes. We should have coupled the two. We should have amended 243 and then also 248, because 248 is not an entrenched provision. So this should have been the dual amendment that should be taking place at this stage. To show our commitment, that we are committed to both elections and also elections on partisan basis. If we don't amend 248 and we go and then we subsequently amend by deletion 55(3), we will still not be able to carry out elections on the basis of political parties sponsoring candidates at district assemblies. That is not possible, because 248 will still stand in the way of political parties participating in sponsoring candidates at the district assembly. So, Mr. Speaker, that is the argument. So once I agree that we could start with 243, but then also, if we are committed to political parties participating, let's add 248 at this stage to the process before we even go to the referendum. So, Mr. Speaker, there is a political bargain here. We in the minority support election, but we are asking for election along partisan basis. And we are asking that you should also show commitment to this undertaking that we are making here by also adding 248 to the amendment. And if you did that, it will be clear from the onset that you are committed to a partisan supported district assembly elections. That's the first point, Mr. Speaker. The second point, that we appear in our debate to be creating an impression that all we have been doing, not having district assemblies, DCEs and MCEs and mayors elected, is necessarily a bad thing and is not in tandem with democratic principles and values. Yes, Mr. Speaker, the principle is that district chief executives, mayors and MCEs should be controlled by the people, and voting directly by the people will place them under their direct control. There's no doubt about that, and it is a laudable objective. And I hear arguments that the majority should decide. This current arrangement is to curb the danger of majoritarian politics. Majoritarian politics in our multi-ethnic setting can be a dangerous threat to peace and stability. Mr. Speaker, you may have districts with different ethnic compositions. One of them might just be a majority all the time. What will happen is that in a parliamentary election, the majority will always win, and then the candidate that will emerge will be a member of a certain ethnic groups. When it gets to district assembly elections, it will be almost the same thing. But this current arrangement allows a leader, a president sitting in Accra, to say, okay, there are three major ethnic groups in this district. And so if the parliamentarian emerges from one ethnic group, to balance it and ensure harmony, coexistence and progress, let me balance it by also nominating somebody from a minority ethnic group so that we can live harmoniously among ourselves. Cohesion and unity, especially in a multi-ethnic setting. So it is not altogether a very bad thing, even though ideally, voting directly by the people is also of very high value for us, and we support and encourage it. Mr. Speaker, thirdly, we have also argued that, and I just want to reiterate this point, we have to amend the bill that has been brought to us, and your committee has made that proposal. And this is a procedural question, a constitutional issue. Can we, in this parliament, on our own, amend and add the 248? Because there is a proposal by this committee, your committee, Mr. Speaker, that we should amend the bill to add, this act shall come into force after the holding of presidential and parliamentary elections in 2020 and in accordance with clause 1 of article 246 of the Constitution. So your committee is proposing that a new clause on commencement should be inserted in the bill as follows. A new clause should be inserted as follows. And that new clause relates to a completely different article of the Constitution. A completely different article of the Constitution. And your committee is the committee is recommending that we should add this new clause. So in effect, based on the recommendation of the committee, we are amending the Constitution without going through the procedures that the Constitution has prescribed for amending it. And Article 291 states how the Constitution should be amended, how entrenched provisions should be amended, and how non-entrenched provisions should be amended. This is a non-entrenched provision. And so for us to amend it, according to the Constitution, it has to come here, it has to go to the Council of State, the Council of State has to advise, and then it will come back here. Mr. Speaker, if your committee is saying that we should amend this bill, have we referred it to the Council of State? Have we benefited from the advice of the Council of State? We have not. So on what basis are we going to be able, on our own, to just insert a clause amending a constitutional provision without having benefited from the advice of the Council of State? So this is a very, very, very serious matter that we should consider procedurally. And Mr. Speaker may give a ruling on that, whether on our own we can just amend an entrenched provision by just introducing an amendment to a bill. A non-entrenched provision by just introducing an amendment to a bill. Mr. Speaker, I take a position that we cannot, because in the process we will be denying the Council of State its powers and role in the amendment of a non-entrenched provision of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, let me reiterate the position of the minority that we support the amendment to the Constitution to allow district chief executives, metropolitan chief executives, and mayors to be elected by universal adult suffrage. We do support that. But we also request that this should be doable with the sponsorship and support of political parties, given their strategic role in organizing so that good leadership will emerge to run our country. If political parties are so important to be able to organize to determine who should be the number one person, the president, why shouldn't they be involved in determining who should be the number one person in a district? It is equally very important. On that note, Mr. Speaker, let me support the statement, but to caution on these constitutional issues that I have raised, and to urge that the minister should reconsider some of the proposals, especially those that the committee has. The minister should reconsider some. Mr. Speaker, I think that the constitutional issues that I have raised.
We have heard you. It is a matter before us in the House. Once the matter is in our bosom.
Okay. On that note, Mr. Speaker, let me conclude.